Not long after the pandemic subsided, I landed a job in San Diego. It was exciting, but the prospect of finding an apartment filled me with anxiety. My savings were meager, so I needed a landlord understanding of newcomers. I joined countless waiting lists and tenant groups, but most leads evaporated. Affordable places invariably had strict no pets policies, and I couldn't bear to rehome Clementine, my 1-year-old cat. She was a total mama's girl. After weeks of relentless searching, I stumbled upon a landlord with a vacant unit. He hadn't even listed it yet. A single cryptic post about a cheap apartment was all I saw. I impulsively messaged him, inquiring about the place. The previous tenant, it turned out, had passed away. It was a 4th-floor apartment, relatively close to Main Street, surprisingly affordable and, best of all, cat-friendly. He offered me a deal: pay for the cleanup crew, and the apartment was mine. I couldn't refuse. Once the place was cleaned, I met my new landlord and received the keys. My new home occupied the top floor of a beautiful 50s-era building. Cool, stone-tiled floors, high ceilings, and abundant sunlight streamed in through generously sized windows. A small French balcony offered a space for smoking or perhaps a miniature garden. There was a spacious living room, a tiny kitchenette, and a cramped bedroom bathed in sunlight. It wasn't luxurious, but I could already feel myself growing attached. The apartment's age, however, was undeniable. Quirks abounded: a lock that required a jiggle, pipes that rumbled during showers, and ventilation so poor I could instantly detect my neighbor's smoking habits. Far from perfect, but for the price and location, it was unbeatable. The most glaring sign of its age, though, was the unsettling 70s wallpaper, an intricate floral pattern. A dark gray base adorned with silver and blue roses, tulips, and sunflowers covered most of the living room and the bedroom's west wall. It possessed a peculiar primitive Art Deco charm, but its age was unmistakable. I vowed to replace it if I stayed long term. Moving in was quick. My furniture was sparse, and buying new pieces wasn't feasible. I made do with what I had, focusing on settling into my new consulting job at a telecom company. My role involved process management and evaluation, not the most thrilling work, but it offered ample room for positive change. Post-pandemic, our routine consisted of a single weekly meeting. The rest was handled from home offices. Forcing weekly in-person attendance seemed pointless, but it was a condition of employment. Clementine settled in far sooner than I did, finding a sunny spot next to a large window. I arranged a cozy basket for her. My own sleep, however, was elusive those first few nights. Lying awake, staring at the ceiling, I'd lose myself in the expanse, similar to gazing into dark waters. A perpetual nothing that seemed to stretch endlessly. My first week flew by. The first meeting, my first assignment. A process assessment at a Pittsburgh branch office. Long-distance evaluation concluding a 2-month cycle. It was manageable, though the office had a reputation for being unruly. A test of one's mettle. The first day involved meet and greets, followed by after-work drinks at a chic downtown bar. My new colleagues were considerably louder than I was used to, so I observed from the sidelines, appreciating a small batch dark pumpkin ale. The next day was full work mode. My laptop faced the dreadful wallpaper, attempting to create an office-like atmosphere. Clementine remained glued to her favorite window, keeping any fluffy tails out of my webcam's view. I spoke with the branch manager and several technicians, gently easing into the project. They were courteous, but clearly battle-scarred, having endured numerous assessments. By day's end, I was talking with a saleswoman named Beatrice. After 4 hours of Zoom calls, my voice was strained. Beatrice noticed my exhaustion, and our conversation veered from work to my apartment, my job, and my cat. I even showed off Clementine. Beatrice, in turn, revealed her own feline companion, a 3-year-old ragdoll named Bruno. Ironically, that call, my longest, flew by the fastest. Beatrice was a gem. I spent the next few days creating questionnaires and mapping out the assessment structure. Daily calls and emails cascaded down the supply chain, illuminating familiar issues. Management blaming sales, sales blaming the warehouse blaming the technicians. Problems ranged from outdated inventory systems to excessive bureaucracy. After several days, a routine emerged. Meetings interspersed with Excel spreadsheets. Clementine and I made the apartment a home. Chinese takeout containers began accumulating in the kitchenette, and I engaged in more casual chats with Beatrice to pass the time. I started to get used to the place, even the ghastly wallpaper. The rumbling pipes faded into the background, the neighbor's cigarette smoke blending into the ambient scent. I stopped waking up to passing cars. My first paycheck went towards making the living room more habitable. One night, working overtime, a late email arrived demanding a progress report due before lunch the next day. Unbelievable. I finished around 10 p.m. Grabbing Clementine's food, I went to her favorite window. She was gone, her bed undisturbed, but she'd settled near another window, sleeping soundly. It felt strange, as if the entire apartment had subtly shifted. Looking at the wallpaper, the pattern seemed off. Identical, yet different. Familiar, yet foreign. It was unsettling. Over the next few days, this feeling intensified. The walls appeared different at night. A sunflower one moment, a rose the next. I chalked it up to inattention. Clementine continued to relocate her favorite spot. One night, she paced restlessly, mewing anxiously. Lying awake, I focused on the wallpaper. I imagined the patterns moving independently, flowers swaying in an invisible breeze. It was the kind of surreal thought one has before sleep. But in that moment, it felt real. The dark gray background seemed as deep as an ocean, a darkness extending into infinite nothingness. The next morning, I stepped on a dry blue petal. There were no flowers in the apartment. The ventilation was abysmal. Clementine played with it, and I convinced myself it was something I'd tracked in. Yet it resembled a petal from the blue roses on the wallpaper. It made me anxious, but I couldn't explain why. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was missing something. That evening, I confided in Beatrice, describing the unsettling feeling, a creepy sensation like an uncomfortable tickle at the nape of my neck. Beatrice chuckled, reassuring me that it took time to adjust. I persisted, convinced something was amiss. Stepping into the living room, I noticed Clementine rolling on the carpet, playing with another blue petal. Turning on the lights, I saw dozens more lining the baseboard. I wasn't crazy. This wasn't a fluke. Clementine seemed unconcerned. I told Beatrice something had come up and ended the call. As I began picking up the petals, a power surge occurred. It was instantaneous, a flash of black. Clementine hissed, staring past me. A rustling noise, like a large animal moving through undergrowth, filled the air. As quickly as it started, it ended, leaving only a startled cat and a racing pulse. The lights flickered back on, momentarily blinding me. Clementine hid behind the couch. For a moment, I stood there, petals in hand, staring at the hypnotic patterns. The gray seemed to deepen, revealing something beyond the obvious. It was like one of those images requiring cross-eyed viewing to see the hidden truth. I felt I was missing something crucial. I could imagine sounds deep within a forest, snapping branches, owls taking flight, and something large approaching. Despite knowing I was alone, my body screamed at me to look again, just in case. I forced my eyes open. Something sharp scratched against the stone tiles, retreating hastily. A trail of dry petals led to my bed. After a night of dreamless sleep, I awoke choking on something. It took a minute to cough up a blue petal. Several more were scattered on my bed. The wallpaper seemed lighter, some flowers appearing sparse, the overall color darker. I'd had enough. I called in sick, retrieved my toolbox, and began scraping off the wallpaper, piece by piece, across the entire apartment. It was a full-day project, accompanied by music as Clementine watched curiously. Every petal and stem fell to the floor, like trimming a paper garden. By day's end, the walls were bare, revealing black lead-painted concrete underneath. That night, after a long shower, I slept with the wallpaper remnants lining the room's edges. Finally, I could focus, look beyond the hypnotic patterns. It was done, gone, except it wasn't. As I drifted to sleep, my eyes fell upon the barren walls, an eternal black night. Even closing my eyes felt brighter. It was more than a color, it was a place. I heard a loud yowl. Clementine was at the bed's edge, staring at the wall, hissing, hackles raised. Something moved deep within the dark. I scooped up Clementine. She clung to my shoulder. I grabbed my bag. I'd had enough. I wasn't sticking around to discover if it was my insanity or something unnatural. Entering the living room, I froze. Every wall was midnight black, windows fogged from the inside, blocking the moonlight. Running my hand along the wall, something cold brushed my palm, a finger. I recoiled. I couldn't see my door. The room's proportions were off, shifting with each blink. The darkness felt untrue, malleable, subtly changing whenever I looked away. My own hand seemed different with every blink. Older, younger, scarred, masculine. It was impossible to tell. It felt like more than fear. It was the darkness changing me. I stumbled to the door. Nothing was there, just solid black. The apartment grew darker, even the windows turned black. The kitchen sink ran, dispensing dark, nondescript globs with a chemical smell. Ammonia. Clementine panicked, digging her claws into my shirt, hissing at something in the darkness. The room changed with every glance, swallowed by the night. Vague silhouettes, hands reaching forward, some small, some impossibly large, became visible. I imagined skyscraper-sized creatures looming, impish beasts nipping at my heels. I curled into a ball, clutching Clementine. Together, we stared down whatever crept closer. But my light was dying. A rumble, my phone, a new message from Beatrice. The small screen illuminated a bubble around me. I wasn't on the floor. I was on a pile of grass and blue petals. A dead field stretched in every direction. A cold wind cut through me like glass. Things moved in the distance, large and small, vague and horrifying, waiting for me to look away. "Hey, hun, heard you were feeling under the weather. Just checking in. Get plenty of rest. We'll talk soon." I replayed the message, filling my head with her voice, my eyes with the phone's meager light. Something brushed against me, a light kick, footsteps rushing past. They were there, hidden in the dark. "We'll talk soon," Beatrice's message repeated. The battery was dying. The light shrunk, I could no longer hear Beatrice. Clementine yowled, hissing and striking at something unseen. As the screen died, a chilling presence approached, careful and calculated. I couldn't see it, but I felt it smiling. Panicked, my skin felt like ice, my fingers numb. I held Clementine close. In a desperate act, I flung my phone. Glass shattered. Morning light broke through. I turned to find an empty apartment, the layout as remembered. The kitchenette still running, torn wallpaper lining the edges, Clementine's bed by the window, and Chinese takeout containers scattered about. Every inch was covered in dry blue petals. I didn't stay. I moved to the branch office where Beatrice worked and stayed there. We're still best friends. I haven't told many about that night. Whatever lived in that dark space waited for someone to breach that barrier of flowers and patterns, something waiting to drag me into a dark place from which I'd never return. Poor Clementine hasn't been the same. Her fur is matted orange, and she's clingier. She's okay, happy, but she's changed. So have I. Not overtly, but things are different. Darker eyes, longer fingers, sharper, whiter teeth. Just enough for me to notice and remember. In my new place, I sleep with the lights on. I avoid looking too closely at the wallpaper. It was Saturday, and the usual weekend restlessness hung in the air. My friends, Willow, Jasper, Iris, and Finn, were at my apartment, flicking through Netflix, finding nothing captivating. We're all from a scenic but unexciting suburban town. Willow, my childhood friend, broke the silence. We could go hiking. The weather's perfect, and we haven't done that in ages. Jasper, our adventure junkie, perked up. I'm in. There's that trail through Hemlock Forest we never finished exploring. Iris, Jasper's younger sister, added, as long as it's not too brutal, I don't want to come back sweaty and disgusting. Finn, always laid back, shrugged. Sure, why not? Beats sitting here doing nothing. Hemlock Forest, a sprawling reserve a 20-minute drive from my place, is a local favorite for hiking, birdwatching, and occasional camping. We'd explored parts of it, but its vastness always promised something new. We parked at the trail entrance. Jasper unfolded a trail map. So, we're here. He pointed to a spot. And I was thinking we could hike up to here. His finger moved to a lake icon. It should be about a 3-hour hike, round trip. We agreed, setting off on the trail. The air smelled of damp earth. The further we went, the more serene it became. We talked, laughed, and took selfies, at ease in each other's company. The fresh air, carrying the distinct scent of damp earth and pine, invigorated me. We walked along an uneven dirt path, worn by animals more than humans, its surface filled with roots and rocks. Sunlight pierced the foliage, casting patches of light on the forest floor. We were chatting and laughing when Finn, at the front, stopped and pointed. Between the trees, barely visible, was the silhouette of a structure. It took a moment to focus, but it was a mansion, large and clearly long abandoned. As we approached, it loomed larger. The facade was weather-beaten, paint peeling to reveal worn wood. Windows were deep set, mostly boarded up, the exposed ones caked in grime. The roof sagged, likely damaged by years of neglect. Ivy and vines crawled up the sides, winding around pillars that framed the front porch. The wooden steps were rotting. Several old chairs lay toppled, a rusty swing hanging lopsided, its chains groaning softly in the wind. A tarnished bronze plaque was screwed into the side of the front door, its engraving worn away by time. Curiosity outweighed apprehension. As we drew closer, we saw that the windows were caked in dirt and grime, obscuring the interior. I noticed intricate carvings of leaves and what appeared to be faces etched into the doorframe's wood. The rusted doorknob was accompanied by an old-fashioned lock that required a large, ornate key. The door hung slightly ajar, creaking softly in the breeze. Willow voiced the question on everyone's mind. Should we go in? Jasper and Iris seemed excited. Finn had that adventurous gleam in his eyes. I felt a mixture of excitement and nagging curiosity. We decided to enter. How often does one stumble upon an abandoned mansion in the middle of the forest? We checked our phone flashlights and took a deep breath. Finn pushed open the door. It creaked loudly, echoing through the empty halls. Darkness enveloped us immediately. Our eyes adjusted slowly. The interior was dim, with slivers of sunlight penetrating gaps in the boarded-up windows, cutting through the dust motes. We turned on our flashlights. The floor creaked as we walked. Dust covered nearly everything. A thin blanket over old furniture. Frayed rugs were scattered on the wooden floors. Long, heavy curtains, their colors dulled by age, hung from the windows. The walls were decorated with faded paintings in ornate frames, landscapes and portraits. Tarnished silverware was arranged in glass cabinets, along with vintage clocks and ceramic figurines, haphazardly placed throughout the rooms. Who lived here? Iris asked. We all wondered. Maybe some old millionaire with too much time and money, I suggested, half joking, half serious. We entered a room that stole our breath. It was filled with lifelike statues, sculpted with meticulous detail. One showed a woman in terror, hands raised. Another showed a man in surprise, eyes wide and mouth open. A child sat alone, her face etched in sadness. The artistry was stunning. These look so real, Willow whispered, awestruck. She moved her flashlight closer, illuminating the statue's lifelike features. Almost too real, Jasper replied, stepping back. Kinda gives me the creeps. Finn, already holding up his phone, announced, "Smile." We gathered around the statues, mimicking their frozen expressions. Finn's phone's flashlight flickered. Willow moved next to a statue of a man running, his face distorted in terror. This guy looks like he saw a ghost, she joked. Or became one, Jasper quipped. Okay, let's not get carried away, I interjected. Iris, who had been quiet, spoke up. The detail is incredible. Look at the eyes. They seem almost wet. Finn took more photos. Willow started taking her own photos. These will look great on Instagram. She laughed, absorbed in framing the perfect shot. We all joined the impromptu photo session, capturing the room from every angle. It felt like a hidden art gallery deep within the woods. The atmosphere was unsettling yet captivating. We felt like explorers, uncovering a hidden treasure. Scrolling through my photos, I noticed something unsettling. Zooming in on the statues, their eyes seemed to follow us, even through the camera lens. I dismissed it as my imagination, fueled by the atmosphere. All right, guys, what's next? I asked. Jasper, looking at a dusty map hanging on the wall, suggested heading upstairs. Willow hesitated. Okay, but I swear if I see a ghost or anything, I'm out of here so fast you won't even see me go. We laughed, but also felt a touch nervous. We chose doors and entered separate rooms. In my room, the smell of old paper and leather filled the air. Shelves lined the walls, filled with books, their spines faded. Dust motes floated in the air, illuminated by my flashlight. Maps lay on a wooden table, their corners curled and yellowed. It was a remarkable collection. I picked up a book, its cover worn and frayed. As I flipped through its brittle pages, trying to decipher the handwritten notes. I heard whispers, faint but unmistakable, coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. I dismissed them as the wind. When I exited the room, the whispers followed, growing louder. A cold shiver ran down my spine. We gathered in the hallway, sharing our findings. Iris was thrilled, recounting her discovery of a room filled with antique dolls. Jasper was equally animated, describing a workshop that seemed like a mad scientist's lab. Finn showed us an old photo album he'd found, the black and white pictures capturing long-gone moments and people. Willow, unusually quiet, said, "I heard whispers. I thought it was my imagination, but they were there. We should leave. I have a bad feeling about this place." "You heard whispers too," I interjected. Jasper laughed it off. "You're both just letting this place get to you. It's all in your head." Iris agreed. Willow looked frustrated. "I'm telling you, something is off about this place. We should leave." "Look, let's explore a bit more and then we'll go," I suggested. The atmosphere shifted. It was darker now. Even Jasper and Iris seemed more cautious. I couldn't shake the feeling that we weren't alone. "Let's head back downstairs," Jasper said. No one argued. We started our descent, our footsteps quicker, our grips on our flashlights tighter. Each step creaked louder. Just as I thought we were overreacting, a loud crash came from upstairs. We froze, our flashlights pointing in different directions. Willow's warning echoed in my mind. "What was that?" Willow asked urgently. "No idea, but I'm not sticking around to find out," Jasper replied, shaken. We agreed to leave. I reached for the doorknob. It wouldn't budge. Jasper tried, with no success. A door slammed shut upstairs, followed by slow, deliberate footsteps. We aimed our flashlights down the corridor. The hallway was empty, yet the feeling of being watched intensified. "Okay, that's it. I'm officially freaked out," Iris declared. "What do we do now?" Finn asked. "We need to find another way out, maybe a back door or window," he said, his voice wavering. We started navigating back through the mansion, moving as a group. The shadows were deeper, the air thicker. The house seemed to have changed. My skin tingled. I kept glancing over my shoulder. Willow, who had been scrolling through her phone, froze, pale-faced. "Guys, you need to see this." We huddled around her phone. It showed the photos she'd taken of the statues. "Look at their clothes. Notice anything?" she asked. My stomach tightened as recognition dawned. The fabrics, styles, and colors strongly resembled clothing described in missing persons reports. Jasper clenched his fists. "This can't be real." Willow's voice trembled. "Think about it. These statues are those missing people, somehow transformed into stone." Iris shook her head. "That's beyond insane." Willow said, "Consider everything. The whispers, the footsteps, the unmovable door. This place is wrong. We're in danger." The footsteps returned, closer, faster, as if pursuing us. "Run," I yelled. We scattered. I found myself back in the room with the statues. I hid behind a heavy curtain. After a tense minute, I peeked out. There was nothing, just the silent statues. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Willow. "Found a window in the kitchen. Meet us there. Hurry." I ran toward the kitchen. I arrived at a room lined with gold-framed mirrors. The reflections were warped and stretched. Iris, Jasper, and Willow were inside. Iris was clutching her arm. It was turning gray and stone-like. Jasper and Willow looked pale. "What happened?" I asked. Iris cried, "My arm! It's turning to stone!" We were paralyzed. Willow said, "We need to find a way out now." Jasper remembered seeing an old cabinet in the hallway. "There might be a key in that cabinet," he said. We found the cabinet. I yanked it open. A billow of dust erupted. Amidst the papers and trinkets, I saw a tarnished metal key. The footsteps returned, louder, faster. "Go, go, go!" Jasper yelled. We ran, the footsteps close behind us, Iris struggling to keep up. We reached the door. I inserted the key. Just as I pushed the door open, an invisible force slammed it shut. Jasper pushed, Willow and I joined him. With a sigh, the door opened. Then, a horrific collection of cracks and grinding noises. Iris was rooted to the spot, her eyes wide with terror. "Guys, I can't move." Her skin lost color, turning gray, her flesh hardening, her face contorted in a frozen scream. She became another statue. A heavy silence fell. "This can't be happening," Jasper shouted. Willow dropped to her knees, trembling. "We have to go. We have to lock this place up and never come back," she whispered. I slammed the door shut, locking it. Jasper threw the key into the woods. We walked through the woods, silent. The mansion receded into the distance, swallowed by the trees. When we emerged, the contrast was jarring. Cars sped along the road, radios playing. People were oblivious to the horror we'd just experienced. Jasper and Willow looked shattered. I started the car. As we drove off, I glanced in the rearview mirror. There was no sign of the mansion, only the blackness of the night. But a profound sense of emptiness remained. Part of me felt petrified, a permanent resident of that house of horrors. That's the end of today's story. I hope you liked it as much as I did. Have you ever experienced something similar? Share your thoughts in the comments, like and subscribe for new daily stories, and to support our channel. See you soon.